are go for liftoff in T-minus 30. Hit the record button.
Gosh, that's swell.
Italo's Blog Talk Radio.
But welcome to another episode of Italo's Black Talk Radio. This is Italo speaking, and I have the pleasure of talking today to a poet coming all the way from, is it New York or is it New
Connecticut.
Jersey? Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
What did I assume that you were in New York?
Because, I don't know. I'm from New York, but I live in Connecticut.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. Can you introduce yourself? Let them know who you are.
I am Dee Truepoetry. I've been doing poetry quite a long time. I've been doing poetry since 1999-ish, and I've been performing it since about 2010. Got into spoken word about 2012. I'm an author. I'm a mom. I'm an essential worker, so I'm all over the place, right? And so, I've been doing it a very long time. My name is Darlene, but there goes the Dee Truepoetry portion, you know?
Okay.
I'm on all social platforms, so I try to stay relevant, you know? I don't only do poetry, though. But yeah.
And the way I met you on TikTok, I think you were on Rob's live.
Yes.
Either because I was following Rob, I forget his name on TikTok, but I'll put the link below so in case you guys are wondering about Rob. Rob was supposed to meet us too today. I don't know where he's at.
He probably was working. He was working so many hours yesterday, so he probably just forgot. Okay. He was working all day yesterday.
Yeah, he works a lot. I don't know what he does, but anyways, when he gets on my podcast, I'll ask him that. But today it's all about Dee. And your poetry, and what I was telling you off the air is that I find your poetry to be very personal. Like I was saying, like there's poetry that you perform as a performance, but there's also poetry that you write for yourself, not necessarily to share when you write it, right? But then eventually you have come to share it on a platform like TikTok, and now I would love to hear some of it today. I know that you published your book. Let us know what your book is about, and maybe read one of your poems today.
Okay. My book is titled Broken Silence, and I did that on purpose because it's a lot of my truths that I was afraid to speak about because it has a lot to do with my mom. I'm a child of domestic violence, and when I say that, it's because I had to witness it, and we don't think about how it affects the children and how it affects their adulthood and their relationships. And it did affect me in multiple ways. Even though my mother played a huge part of my childhood and my trauma, I still had to watch her pass away. And that's another chapter in my book. So it's in different chapters. So 7 chapters, 7 poems per chapter. And so there's the domestic violence, there's the grieving, there's the healing, there's love, heartbreak. That's why there's so many layers to my book, because I kind of just picked the best fitting poems for the book to explain that chapter in my life. I chose the number 7 because 7 is the pivotal number for me, where my healing actually began the 7th year of my mother passing. And also my kids are 7 years apart. It's just that number 7 kind of, stays with me. So I just figured I'd do it that way. So it's about domestic violence. It's about all kinds of things. And the difference between my poetry book and other poetry books is the fact that I'm telling my story in poetry form. So it's like I'm writing poems and I'm giving you the poems in sequence as to how things happened in my life. I'm giving you an intro. I'm writing a little bit at the end of the poems to kind of let you know where my head was at. I'm giving you a nice chunky intro in the beginning, and letting you know about me. And so that the poems would make sense. So it's not just a whole bunch of poems I put together. It's literally things that happen. That's why it's you said it's so personal because it is personal. Every poem is something that happened to me, and the crazy part is that most people can relate to every single poem. Some people, who've been through the heartache, those are relatable. The domestic violence, those are relatable. So yeah, so that's really what my book is about. It's about me, but not just about me, because I'm not the only one who has been through these things. So it's not just about me. Yeah. So
Right.
that
So
one, I sat on that book for a long time.
what gave you the courage to share it on a platform like TikTok?
TikTok, I just got up here. I got on TikTok for fun. And then I said, why not just share it? Because I've been on all other platforms. I've shared it on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, you name it. I've shared my poetry. And I said, TikTok is just another platform for me to meet more people from different places. Because at this point, it's more like the more people I reach, the more people I can speak to, the more healing that can be done. Because when I get into my poetry, it's like it brings up these emotions, and then it brings up questions that people ask me, and then I ask them, and then we can converse about it. Especially like when I go live and stuff, you have people like talking about my poems and what they saw, and where did it come from, and they're so relatable that I feel like we need healing. So I just invited a new platform to do that on. And I've met so many new people, and I mean, there's so many things happening. Basically, I have an event in March that wouldn't have happened unless I joined TikTok. Like, I met those people literally through TikTok. So
What's the event about in March?
It's called Shades of Poetry, and it will be in New Haven, Connecticut. It's a poetry show. There's going to be another poet I met on TikTok. His name is Mr. I Am Him on TikTok, but his real name is Michael Smalls, and he does poetry. And I'm in a show with him. I'll be hosting it, and he'll be featuring with another poet, and we're doing it out in Connecticut, which is so crazy. So I would have never thought,
Right.
But
Were you performing like live on stage, or were
yes.
you were okay?
Yes, that one's going to be live. I actually have 2 shows back to back. Another one in Connecticut that's happening that same week. But yeah, so things are coming, into fruition, and it would have never happened if I wasn't on TikTok. And I started Poet Talk. I know you saw the Poet Talk. I started that on purpose with Rob because I do Poetry Matters and Poetry Matters movement, and that's what I push more, because words matter. And what we don't realize is that poetry is not just rhyming words. You know what I mean? It's healing, it's speaking your mind, it's telling your truth, it's telling your story. So instead of saying words matter and say all of that, I just put it into one, because I feel like poetry is the base of most things, right? And so poetry matters. And then what we did was we just did Poet Talk, because it's just, it's more catchy, right?
Yeah,
so,
right.
So it's a platform for all artists.
Cool.
And I like making platforms for people because, like I said, it all boils down to being able to speak your truth, because we need that. We need that community. We need that healing. We need someone to listen.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially from people of color, right? Because
yes,
especially men, especially gay men, especially
everyone.
Yeah, there's a lot of classes I particularly had to come out of, right?
Right.
As well as being as the son of a narcissistic mom who was not physically abusive, but she did a trick on me in different ways. So my experience is different than your experience, but I relate so much to your poetry because I still feel the emotions, even though if it wasn't physical, or it might have been a little bit. I still relate with the emotion that you share on your poetry, and I'm like, yeah, I get that. So, what are some of the things that you hear from people once you hear your poetry? What is the stuff that they tell you about their experience?
The main thing people tell me about my poetry is that they don't know what to expect, right? So like, if I'm going to spit a poem, I'm a love poet, of course, but because I have so many things in my book and I write about so many different life experiences, it's just like, it's what they need to hear right now, basically, like even with my lives or whatever they catch, or wherever I am performing, it's like that's what they needed to hear right now. And I love hearing that because, again, I'm an advocate for healing. I'm an advocate for that because it's just like, how are you going to do anything without, you know, doing that inner work, you know? And that's mostly what they talk about. They're just like, Dee, it's just like you said, it's so relatable. You know what I mean? It's just, they can feel the emotion as I'm doing that poem, you know?
Right.
And they like that raw and that realness because a performance is great, but you know, people like to feel you, and that's the biggest thing. So that's what I hear mostly, that they can feel it.
And I hear a lot of inner child work in your poetry.
Yes.
when you explain it to me, explain it to the people that are listening, because I already know about inner child work or shadow work. How do you come up with that, or how did it help you?
Okay, so there's a lot of other stuff. Like I have a 20-year-old, and we talk a lot now, and it wasn't always like that. So she helped me through some things because I had some resentment from my mom, and I didn't realize how much my inner child was like having tantrums inside of me. And so when I started to actually think about it, you know, and when it came time to actually apologize to my child and how hard it was to do those things, and how I understand now why my mother did certain things, and how my daughter still, how I tried to not get traumatize my daughter, but still traumatized her with other things. She's like, I have mommy issues. And I'm like, but how? And that's my inner child, like, how? But I went through this, but you can't judge for that. You know what I mean? So we had to do some work. And I said, if my daughter could forgive me for these things that I had no idea that I did, then I have to go inside and I have to heal, and I have to think about all the things my mother put me through that she didn't mean to. And, you know, some kids have actual abuse from their parents. My mother was the one being abused, and she was the one going through her stuff and trying her best to do the right thing, but still traumatized me in the end. So I had to go back and say, if my daughter could forgive me, then I need to figure out how I'm going to forgive my mother, because that's not something for her, it's something for me, for my healing. You know, for each time that I fought with my inner child, like, no, it's my turn. It's my turn. But think about it. My kids should be able to have a voice. So now I have to hug my inner child. I have to work on my inner child. I got to figure out why they triggered me, because it's not their fault. It's myself. It's my inner child trying to take over. So until I got a hold of that, it was hard. It was so hard, because you just want to tell them to shut up, because it's like, you got told to shut up because I said so. I don't got to explain it to you about because I'm the parent, but that's not the right way. I mean, to an extent, you want to tell your kids no because I said so. Yeah, there's some things that they already know the answer. They just be in some type of way. But no, there's sometimes where you just got to be like, you don't have to be that way. So it was a lot, but I've come a long way, and not by myself, because my 20-year-old daughter has been right there with me, and we've been healing together. And
Right.
yeah. Yeah. So
Well,
that's how I came.
That's
Yeah.
amazing that your daughter brought that to your attention. It's interesting. I don't have any children, but yeah. And I think the experience of talking to the inner child, to some people, it might seem like, oh, we're just going to go to the amusement park, or we're going to have so much fun. And no, that is the misconception that I
Yes.
had. I'm like, okay, let's celebrate, let's party, let's do the stuff that you didn't get to do when you were a kid. That's not inner child work.
No.
And I learned it the hard way. I'm like, why am I still hurting, right? And anyways, let's get on to the poetry part, because I like you to share something maybe about inner child work.
Okay.
Go with it. Okay. And show the people that are watching us on YouTube your book, so they can take a look at it.
Yes. My website is getting revamped, so it'll be DeeTruepoetry.com. Right now I'm doing it kind of through email inbox. You know, it's DeeTruepoetry at gmail.com. We can set up payments and everything else until the website gets done. What else did you ask me? I don't know. My brain went on.
Oh, if you want to show your book.
Oh yeah. So that's I'm backwards, but it's Broken Silence. Yeah. It's also on Amazon, but I've purchased a whole bunch of books and I signed them and I personalized them. So it'd be better to get it from me. So
Right.
the poem that you heard me do and that you were like, whoa, wait a minute. It's in this chapter. What's the name of it? It's a kind of a letter to myself.
Hmm.
Yes, and talking about all my trauma, it's where is it? Where are you? Did I put it into the domestic violence chapter? It might, oh yeah, scars is in domestic violence chapter. So this one kind of breaks down exactly what I was going through and how how I'm talking to myself, going back and saying, giving myself direction as if I'm in the future, and I go back and say, look, these are all the things that's going to happen, but you're good, we're good, we're going to be fine because I'm fine right now. So I'm going to give them hope, give myself hope because But yeah, so that one is called Scars. It's actually the last poem in my domestic violence chapter. And I went all the way through the book and it was right in front of the book. Whip up. But anyway. Okay, scars. Her scars have become my own. I must share my story to rid my soul. This hurt and pain must be extracted from our existence. We carry this burden every day. Abuse don't stop at the victim. It continues on in the minds of children, only to grow up with this horror of embedded memories, dreadful thoughts of what love should be. If I can talk to my younger self, I will tell her she's enough and that times will get rough, but you will make it through. Stay strong because you are the glue. Stay focused because many will depend on you. That thing you heard and scared to say till this day, it's not your fault. That day you were in your sunken place, those noises from the next room, well, there was nothing you can do. Don't worry, I'll be right back. Mom so often forgot to say. That's the reason for our separation anxiety. She would always leave and daddy couldn't stay. He had another family. I'll be right back, he would say. See you next vacation or next week. Yes, he said those things to me. But still, I wondered, why not me? I've always wanted a family. See, this is why I memorize the way people walk, the sound of their shoes as they leave the room, in the hopes to hear them re-enter soon. I wonder if people are telling the truth. I want to tell you that there are still good people in the world. Never give up. She was preparing you. I mean, us, for what's to come. It's now, and I'm still wondering. It's now, and I'm still waiting for her to come home. Alone most of the time, enough to make our kitchen a slip and slide. Well, side note, true story. My sister and I put cooking oil all over the floor and slid back and forth. In the time we played hide and seek, I hid my sister in the fridge. It was fun until I realized my fridge was just empty. Empty, like our home. Empty like our hearts and souls, searching through the peephole for mommy to come home, waiting to be whole. She was too busy getting her necks fixed. We weren't priority on her list. My big sis stepping in as if, making sure our needs were met. Time passed. Same sad story. Grandma passes. And she was blamed. So she played the moving game. We moved to Waterbury, but that's not it. We also moved from apartment to apartment, but not before we stayed at a shelter, a whorehouse, and at a stranger's place. Ate at a soup kitchens, but don't worry, that's not too bad. The real kicker is a slap in the face, not to mention he gave her HIV, and still he was more important than me. I mean, us. Even though he beat her senseless on more than one occasion, it's not your fault. We did all that we could before she passed. And that voicemail he left on her deathbed was unexpected, so don't stress it. It's all good because he will get his. This is all my truth, and I am one with it. I come from domestic violence, drug abuse, and poverty, and this is a part of me, my truth, my story, my poetry.
Wow. Woo. Uh,
Yeah, that's a lot. That one is one of those.
It is
poems.
a lot. And how old were you when you were going through this? Or,
So there's different stages in my life. So when I was living in New York, my mother was addicted to cocaine, and she would leave. She would leave to get high, and we were alone most of the time. I had an older sister, and then by the time my grandmother passed away, I guess she was trying to run away from the blame of my grandmother's death and also run away from her addiction, which that's not something you can do. You can't run away from an addiction. And so she ran. And a cousin of mine lived in Connecticut, and we ran out here. So then that's that portion. We ran out to here. We're moving back and forth. We have to, go through all of this and that. And then when she did settle down with someone, he was nice at first. He ended up being abusive and also addicted to crack. So now here she is on cocaine, he's on crack, and now here is a bad situation because now there's the domestic violence that comes in. So drug abuse, domestic violence, a lot of that going on. So now we have from jumping from here to there, it's like now we're in a stable home, but now here's the abuse. Like, so we got a roof over our head. Now here's the sacrifice, So then that came in, and that went on for years and years and years and years. I mean, she was with him a long time, and she would leave him and go back to him. So there was a lot of that, a lot of mental and physical abuse. And it went from physical abuse to mental abuse. And it was just a lot. And then jumping in and out of churches and getting on and off of drugs and a lot of, so that continued on. I left the house at 21. I had my first child at 20. So it went on almost until I left home.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of that.
Yeah, because oh God, give me a second. Is my dad keep calling me, and I'm like, no, not right now.
I'm busy.
Yeah, we're talking about you, so no, I was kidding. Am I still here? Yeah.
Yes, you're back.
Sometimes, man, it's like, do you get a hint? Like, I'm busy, like I'm being traumatized right now.
Oh.
No, it's okay. But what I discovered is because I was when I discovered through my process of healing as well, is that I wasn't emotionally mature, and I was stuck at a certain age. That's why I was asking you how old were you, because when the abuse starts, that's when you stop growing emotionally. I think that's when you get stuck. They call it arrested development. That's when you get stuck in that age, and you get stuck in that it's like a victimhood kind of you always blame your parents, you blame everybody else but yourself. So I never blame or I never to look at myself. I always blame everybody else, or this boyfriend or that parent or that mother, whatever. So it was always blaming others until I realized I had to take a look at myself. Don't blame my inner child either, but take ownership, as an adult, because that's what you have to do is, as an adult, going back to those moments and detaching yourself from the emotion a little bit. I don't know if that happens to you when you write. You're very calm and you're very, at least I am when I'm writing a poem or something. It may be very hurtful, it may be very triggering and stuff, but as a writer, I see that child separate from me. I'm not there. I'm not in that situation anymore. So I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, it makes sense. It makes sense. You have the people who can't read those poems, and because I know people who can't read those poems anymore because they're not there anymore. But me, I can separate myself. I can read a poem in which I'm not there anymore, but it's my poem, it's my writing. I'm going to express it because I was there before, and I can go back to that, or like when you're writing about it, like for instance, I'll be writing like a release poem and just release it. And then when I go and read it back, I'm like, damn, that was deep, because while I was writing, it was just, I'm releasing it, I'm letting it go. But when I read it back, it's almost like I didn't even write it because it was me letting it out. But, so I can get that.
It's like Do you feel like
somebody
somebody
else.
else is writing it, or do
Yes,
you feel
yes,
like
I've done
okay,
that.
okay,
I've done that before, where I look back at the poems and I'm like, damn, that was a good poem, but I don't remember. It was really good.
yeah,
But yeah, so those release poems, like this one that I just read, that was more like that was a journal type deal. Because I don't know if I think you asked me, but that was a journal thing, and it was just like this needs to be heard because this is a large chunk of it. So I'm gonna put it in there. I debated whether I was gonna put it in the book or not because technically it's just like it don't sound like one of the poems I've written. But like you said, there's different kinds of poetry. There's those that are just release poems. There's performance poems. There's actually slam poems. There's all kinds. So that's one of those that just had to be in there because that was the end of that chapter. So that just had to be in there, just kind of to sum
mhm.
it up,
Right, right.
But yeah.
Well, let me share one of mine before
Yes,
we
please.
break on, because I got a break and then we gotta do a part two because my computer is like 20%. I gotta plug it.
Okay.
But I'd like to share one of mine. I was debating on I was debating whether to share something personal or something that I would perform in an open mic. So let me just do what I thought is appropriate to share today. But it's not one of those that I would perform. Let's put it that way. So let me just here it is. It's called "The Past Is in the Past." um, if the past is in the past, why does it present in the present? I'm tired of hearing family telling me to get over it. Let bygones be bygones. Yet I still feel hurt and not heard. When was the last time you truly cared how I was doing while you're busy covering your tracks? I'm just stating the facts. If sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me, why am I still hurting by your dismissive behavior? Never have I ever felt so alone than when I'm surrounded by people that don't wish to listen. They're so stuck on covering their pain and shame, hoping somehow it will eventually go away. It has not worked for me to put my feelings at bay because they always reach the shore like washed up whales. I scream and yell to no avail because I've never felt heard. But that's your mom, though, and you only get one of those. That's what you always say. But have you considered what I have to say? Those same words like nails encrusted. I don't like your attitude, adjust it. And quit telling me what I already know. All that guilt, all that sorrow, I carry them as my own. I claim my freedom, my well being, my sanity. I must come first instead of last. That never lasts. Think about how your words and indifference affects like a ripple effect, brings up all that trauma stored in my head. I want to unpack and heal and live my life instead. This shit doesn't belong to me. It doesn't belong here. So I'm closing this door and I'm choosing to live my life for me. You should consider that too.
I love that.
And this is not geared to any particular person. Um, anyways, it's geared to everybody who tells you this, and it may not be your family, maybe your friends or acquaintances or people that don't know trauma, like I know trauma. So, anyways, that was the past is in the past. I always, whenever I hear that, I'm like, no, that isn't true.
That isn't. It isn't.
Because it's triggering to me. It's like, don't say that.
That's like when people say time heals, and it's just like, no, it doesn't. You heal yourself. Time doesn't. Just because time is going past doesn't mean you're healing.
Yeah.
No,
It makes it actually worse to let
it
let
does.
let time heal. And when you're 60 or in your 50s and you're still dealing with it, like I am almost 50 now, I'm still dealing with that. You know, it didn't go away just because I put it away in a closet.
That's
You got
right.
bigger and bigger, if anything.
That's right. And I was poking out of the closet. Now you got to deal with it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We have 6 minutes left. I don't know if you want to share another poem yet,
I'll
or you
share
want to
another
put
one. I'll share another
okay,
one. Yeah,
cool.
this one's good. I was debating if I wanted to do Who I Am or Why I Write. No, let's do Who I Am. Who I Am is nice. Okay, I'll do this one. This is an oldie but goodie. I am the struggle of happiness, the peace of war. Yeah, I'm sure. I am the essence of goodness, the perfume of paradise, the rainbow after the storm. I'm a long way from home. I am the daughter of temptation, the sister of a victim, the cousin of pain, streams of endless rain. I am the aunt of loneliness, the granddaughter of second chances. Most important, I am the mother of my happiness. I am the strength of my ancestors and the courage of my forefathers, the voice of my sisters and brothers. Who am I? I am poetry. This one has a note at the bottom. Took me a long time to figure out that I am the positive light in every dark moment in my life. I give people hope, so I choose to continue to be what I was born to be. I know who I am now.
your Dee Truepoetry.
Dee Truepoetry. This
I'm not
poetry is true to me. That's the reason for my name, True Poetry, because I speak from my experience.
right.
So,
I love it. So why don't we take a little break?
okay.
All right. Let's resume, guys. Part two. We are doing the sequel right away.
Part two.
Saying we're here with Dee Truepoetry once again. So in case that you guys are wondering, you have YouTube, you have Instagram, Facebook.
Yes.
I don't know if you have Facebook. Okay, yes. And of course TikTok. But
yes.
Yeah. So for whoever wants to listen to your poetry, I'm gonna put all the links below, and they can purchase your book. They can
yes.
Hear you reading it. So, what was the first? Well, let me put it this way. What is your first book?
Say it again. What is what?
What is your first book?
My first book that I published?
Yeah.
Broken Silence is the only book that I published on my own. I'm in a few anthologies with beat poetry in Connecticut. I think 3 anthologies, and then I was able to do my own book because I became Beat Poet Laureate, and it was one of the perks of being Beat Poet Laureate. You get your own book, so I didn't even have to pay for this one.
Oh.
So wow. I have plans to publish more books that I'm like not rushing, or because I have so many things going on. It's like there's no need to rush. I'm gonna embrace in this one. There's plenty of people who haven't gotten their hands on this one, so there's no need to rush all these books out of here. So within the next year or so, I should put out the second one.
Great. So, but they should buy this one first, and then get ready for the next one. Is it gonna be poetry? Your next book?
It is.
What are you thinking about doing next?
So this one I ended on healing. So my next one will be the journey of my healing and the parts of my healing, because I ended up with COVID, and that is that is something, because it gives you another view on life. Also during 2020, COVID started, and there's this thing called the 30-30 that we do in April, and we read a poem a day. And I did that during 2020, and a lot of it reflected on what was happening then. Maybe not all of them are worthy to be in the book, but I want to put my best ones in the book because that is something that needs to be spoke upon. I don't want to do a book about COVID. I mean, we all know what happened, and sometimes it becomes redundant. So I don't like to stay too much on one thing. So I am going to put that in it because that has a lot to do with my growth, because I had to separate myself from all the events and a lot of people. The only thing I was able to do was go to work And I work with clients one-on-one, so it's not a lot of people interaction. So it gave me a lot of time to think and reflect on life. And so that's going to be in there as well. I lost my daughter's father in the end of 2020. Excuse me, my younger daughter's father. And that was something, because I realized that I wasn't even allowing myself to grieve my mother, and she had been gone for so long, and I didn't even really allow myself to fully heal from that. So like I was dealing with both both losing her and not dealing with it, and then losing him, and me and him had a certain connection, and then with the trying to figure out how I was going to tell my daughter and all these things, and trying to figure out, okay, it's not just an absent father that I can just call up and say, get your booty over here because, we need to do this and that and the third. I can't do that. So now I have to deal with those things as well. And in allowing myself to grieve this man, because we were divorced, right? And we had our problems, but we were still, good. And allowing myself to grieve this man and not making myself feel guilty for grieving him, if that makes sense. Because it was like, I feel this way, but is it okay to feel this way because we weren't together? I shared myself. I had a child with this man. I love him, so why not allow myself? It's okay. So then we have that, and then and then we have me catching COVID the following year. So it's going to be a little bit of a whole bunch of healing, a whole bunch of, I always give a piece of myself in every single poem. So I'm gonna allow you to enter my world the same way I did with Broken Silence, but some other stuff going on.
Okay. There's a lot of unpacking to do. Still.
Yes. Still, oh yeah, most definitely. And I still even have an idea for my third book. My third book, during my healing, I realized that I have a problem with death and the way I perceive it. And so I'm going to talk about it. And that one will be more of me talking to you and putting some poetry in it, as opposed to it being poetry and me talking to you in between, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So the third one will be different. The third one will be, it's poetry based. It's still healing, but it's more of a reflection type of writing. That one will take a little bit longer because I want to make sure it's perfect.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, so I'll take a different route for that one. But the next one will definitely be, continuation, because I ended this one with healing, the healing chapter. So yeah, that's the theme for the next one. Some more healing.
Wow. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to your book here, but I'm also looking forward to what you're coming up next, because everybody needs to heal. Like I always hear people saying, well, I don't have any trauma, right? I hear some people, some family members especially, saying that to me, or relatives, I should call them. And I'm like, no, there's a lot of death in my family. There's a lot of, there's a suicide in my family. There's addiction in my family. There's abuse in my family. I'm like, come on, let's just start from here.
Start somewhere.
And there. And I point it out, and sometimes they're like, oh, but I'm cool with that. I'm over that. And I'm like, are you really? Because I'm not. It's okay to say you're not.
Exactly.
In my family, especially Hispanic families, they tend to put everything under the rug. And that's what's been happening in my family until it kills you, from the inside. So.
That's scary when people do that. I stay away from those people, because we all have healing to do. We all have growing to do. And for someone to tell me whether they know everything and they're okay, and damn well, there's always something to heal from. There's always something to grow from. And if you want to be the same person you was yesterday, I don't want you around me, because I'm continuously growing every single day, continuously figuring new things out about myself, new things about my kids. Like, there's always room for growth. For someone to stay stagnant, that's scary for me, because I'm not. And I was never okay with that. Like, I was always conforming into whatever situation I was in. And that was from my trauma. So I was having my trauma dictate my relationships, because I'm conforming into this relationship and going with the flow and letting them lead. And it's okay for them to lead, but I can't lose myself in the meanwhile. But because I'm so used to being that chameleon, each relationship was different in a bad way. because I am conforming, and that's not good. So I'm at a place where I'm like, nope, that's not what I'm doing. This is where I am, and we have to meet each other where we are and grow together. Other than that, I ain't got no time for it. I don't want to be around people like that. That's so toxic, and I would have never even noticed it ever had I not started my own journey.
Right. I mean, was it hard for you to admit that you have trauma in your life? Was there a time where you were like, no, I didn't. No, I'm cool. I'm okay. I'm not crying. You know what I'm saying? Like, was there a time where you resisted, your own healing?
Yes, subconsciously, because it was more of it comes out in anger, right?
Mm.
Because that person got you upset, and it has nothing to do with that person getting you upset. My therapist called me a tea kettle. And so what happens is once the steam builds up, it's like, but what's happening in front of you is not even what's bothering you. You dropped milk, literally dropped milk, because they say don't cry over spilled milk. I literally was crying over spilled milk because I'm not dealing with the major issues that I need to be dealing with. And then there's those underlying things that we don't even know we're even going through. That inner child stuff, I didn't even look, I didn't even have time to deal with that because I didn't even know what that was until recently, where I was like, that makes sense, you know? But before that, it was just like, my daughter just was like, Ma, we couldn't talk to you. We couldn't say nothing to you. Now they can talk to me. Before they couldn't talk to me. My daughter was like, I would do a trigger word, I guess, and you would flip out or close off, she would say. I would close off. If I'm not lashing out, I was closing off. And it wasn't a conscious thing until it was a conscious thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
Right.
Well,
So
yeah,
yes,
I had to be told too. It's like, like when I would ask me like, how are you doing? I'm like, I'm fine. And then in reality, I wasn't.
Right.
Until I had to breathe. First off, he tells me, and then he tells us like, how do you feel? It's like, I'm feeling okay. I'm just numb. I would say that I feel numb. I already know. I already know the abuse is going on. I already know what mom is doing this and that, and she's saying this and that about me and about you, and but I'm numb. I'm numb to it. I would say that, and that wasn't very long ago either. And now I'm like, I realize that numbness is a silent killer. It was killing me from the inside. I had all these health issues now because of that, and years and decades of silencing myself. Yeah. It's a lot of. I still have a lot to go through, so it's not over for me either. That's actually one of the questions I had for you. Is like, when do you know that you're past this grief, or when does it stop? Does it ever stop?
I feel like acknowledgement is the key, right? And so it's how you deal with it, and that's how you know that you've hit a milestone. I don't know if you ever get over it completely, but I feel like with grieving, I know my triggers now. So if I know that my kids all talking to me at once is a trigger, I'm going to say one at a time before that happens. You know what I mean? If I know it's coming up for my mom's anniversary, I already am preparing myself to say, I'm not going to give myself too many things to do because I'm going to flip out on some milk being spilt. You know what I mean? And so when it comes to my inner child and my kids are coming to me and saying something I know that I wouldn't have gotten away with as a kid, I breathe first, right? Because I know that that's going to trigger me because I couldn't do that as a kid. So I have to recognize it. And I think the biggest thing is to be able to recognize it. And that's how you know you've hit that growth point where you can recognize it. And I feel like with repetition and recognizing it, we can subconsciously do it. And it won't be us getting over it. It will just be us evolving to the point where we can recognize it before even like recognizing it. It's a subconscious thing that automatically your mind just shifts it for you. And I think it just takes that, because like getting over it or healing completely is not even a thing, because there's always going to be something. It's always going to be something. And we evolve,
Right.
you know.
And it might be a memory, like, you know, I always get triggered with
Trigger.
either songs or movies I used to watch, or
Right.
yeah, or signs along the freeway, like it reminded me of something, you know, like anything, or dreams, or you know, I'm all about dreams now. But yeah, there's always something. It's always like something that you remember. It might not be traumatic. Sometimes it might be something funny, something like, oh, I forgot about that. I forgot I was having fun that day. Like for me, it was hard to think about a time that I had a really good time. Like, isn't that funny? Like,
no, it's not. I know that feeling.
like when do you have fun? Um, um, when were you when was I truly happy? When was I truly happy?
That's
I
a
don't
good
know.
one. That's a good one.
Yeah, it's tough to think about it now. Now actually I can say I'm actually happy. I'm doing stuff that I'm doing, and you're doing the stuff that you're doing that makes you happy. But in reality, I wasn't happy for a very long time, and I didn't realize it until I had to unpack all that stuff from the past.
Yeah.
And speaking of unpacking, let's unpack some more poetry.
Poetry.
Let's stop talking.
No, it's okay. I love this. I love it. I love it. I love it. It's wonderful. Yeah, so let's see, forgiveness. Let's see, let's do a forgiving poem. I got you.
And then whenever you read this, do you feel you're releasing it more and more each time that you share it?
Yes. I remember when I first started on TikTok and I was reading my poetry every morning, and my first go around with the poetry, it sparked up so much conversation because I was just like, I'm going to read this poem, guys. And this is the first time I'm reading it since I published this book. I hadn't opened up my book since I published it. And then when I started TikTok, and I was like, look, how am I going to sell my book if I don't tell people about it? Like, what the heck? Like, I have to do it. And so when I went in there and I started reading stuff, I was just like, and then I would need a moment afterwards. You know what I mean? Because it was just like, I never read this poem besides me editing it and just letting, you know, and it was just like, sometimes, you know, the tears or whatever, but I feel like letting myself know it's okay to feel it, because you know sometimes we fight it, and that's the part that gets us sick. So in just letting myself know it's okay, and you know, the people on the live letting me know, like, Dee, you look like you're gonna cry, just do it if you need to, like, it's okay. And having that support system and saying it's okay not to be okay, it's okay to feel that emotion, because I kind of just left it there with the poem. And my whole thing is, my biggest thing is, you have to feel to heal. And so if I don't allow myself to feel that, how am I going to get there? So yeah, it was a lot. Going back to that stuff's a lot.
I understand. What was that?
My daughter's going to her practice for her modeling, and she just looks amazing.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so she's doing her modeling. She's in college. Like, she's a great example. Like, just like one of those star examples of an older sibling. Like, I'm just very blessed.
I can tell that the generational trauma is about to end, right? Do you feel that?
Yes, that's the plan. That's the plan. I'm doing the work so that my kids don't have to. And my older daughter is doing her own work because she was there while I was her age, still trying to figure it out. So she's got it. She has it too. So we're dealing with that together. And so yeah, we're ending it.
That's precious. That's all I gotta say.
Huh?
That's precious.
Thank you.
Healing with your parent. Well, I guess I can, because I'm doing the same thing with my dad.
Good.
I stopped talking to him for 4 years, and now that I allow him back, you see, he was calling me and everything, but I still have to set some limits with him, some boundaries. But anyways, it's a good thing.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing. So, and I'm watching her, and I'm just like, my baby's going to do the modeling thing. She just looks
Oh.
so proud. She just, yeah.
Oh, she's great.
Yeah, yeah, she is, huh? That's my baby.
Let's hear
Thank
your
you.
other. I
Okay,
see the
so
hand of somebody else.
forgive. Forgive is a short one. This one is to my mom. I had to literally write it down that I forgive her. But here it is. Forgiveness is what I've done. Sleepless nights of worry, smiles of sadness, cries of laughter. I forgive you. Strange faces here and there. Things a child should never bear. Things that should not be seen, I've seen. All is done. All is through. I forgive you, mommy. So that's it. The forgiveness poem to my mom. And I write a little note always. So as a child, I was put through some things that I held on to for far too long. So one day I decided that forgiveness was important for my personal growth and healing. Period.
But, I hear this on TikTok. I don't know if you have come across some people saying if forgiveness is for yourself, and some people are opposed to it. Some people are saying, "Don't forgive your parents. Don't ever do that." And I'm like, I don't know. I think it's good to forgive
Yes.
for your own well-being, regardless of what people might say. Because some people might never forgive their parent whatever their parents did. I don't know. It's a little bit controversial, I think.
But I feel like once we have to come to the realization that we are having a human experience, right? And so there is no handbook to being a human, right? And there's no handbook to being a parent. And once you realize that there's no handbook to being a parent, then you start to think, okay, now this is a person I'm dealing with, not just my parent. It's a person that has their own trauma that only reacts with trauma. And until you heal that trauma, you'll continuously walk through life reacting through trauma. And you can only see through your trauma lenses. So whatever that parent did to you, what was done to them was probably worse. So they're feeling like they're doing better, right? But it's not, it's traumatizing you. So now until they realize that what they've done is better than what they went through, and they are trying to do it better, and no one's saying, I want us to work this out and move forward. And what we don't realize, because most parents is, because my daughter's dealing with it now, is that me and her are healing together, right? Her and her father need to, right? He needs to do some healing, but he's not even taking the step to even listen to it, right? And you don't have to, you can say you're sorry, but the biggest thing when you're a parent and your child is trying to heal, or anyone else for that matter, you have to listen, because you know what you went through during that time and your responses and why you did it. It doesn't excuse it though. You still need to listen to what you've caused, the ripple effect, because that's part of their healing as well. And for me, and my daughter telling me she had mommy issues, it hurt like hell. It hurt so bad, but I'm glad she told me.
Right.
I'm glad I had no idea. We sat there and we cried together because I said, I'm so sorry. Like, I had no idea I was doing that to you. Like, I had no clue. We needed that. You need to listen in order to even forgive. But if nobody's willing to listen, nobody's going to forgive in the situation. And that's the problem. That's the problem right there. And that's why you say that the healing is for self, because you get to hear, was it intentional or wasn't it? Right? Because yes, you don't want to hear excuses, but it's a plus to hear whether it was intentional or not. And that person needs to hear that what they did hurt you.
Right.
It's not enough to just assume, because I never even knew. But not everybody's there. And so I feel like it is for yourself to heal. You need that. You need for someone to hear what happened to you, especially the person that caused it. They have to hear what happened. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. You're good. You're good.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of why they would say that. I think the only reason you shouldn't forgive is when you know it's not sincere, or you know they're not really truthfully sorry. Because sometimes people that hurt me, and particularly me, when they apologize, right away they start doing the same thing they were doing before.
Right.
So it's like, well, you're not truly sorry, are you? You're still lying to me. You're still triangulating. You're still gaslighting me, and you're still, doing the stuff that you used to do to me. So why would I forgive you?
But the best apology is change behavior. So that would be my answer to anyone who's apologizing, and say, yes, I hear you, but the best apology is change behavior. So if you're really sorry, you won't do it ever again. Whatever it was you're apologizing for. So in order for me to even say, well, you if you're really sorry, things will change.
Yeah.
So in that case, yeah, I can see that.
I can see both. Like, I'm a Libra, so I'm already like, that makes a good point, but this also makes a good point. So I'm always doing this in my head. I'm like, yeah. And my traumatized self is like, yeah, I don't know.
I get it. I mean, I try to be in the middle and see both sides either way. I'm a Taurus, but I don't think that has anything to do with it. I could be stubborn. I can be, but the way I was raised, it's different. The nature of it. I'm a Taurus in some senses, but I can really see both sides of the story, and I can see why a person wouldn't want to forgive. And I think it goes based on what a person thinks forgiveness is, right? Because when we think about forgiveness, what does it mean for you, first of all? Because if forgiveness means forget about it and we're going to be friends again, then no. But if forgiveness to you is letting go, you know what I mean? Because I was listening to a podcast that my daughter was doing, and they all had 3 different perspectives of forgiveness. So when you say, would you forgive somebody for this? Now you still have to go back and say, what does forgiveness mean to them?
Right. True. I mean, like I see it as forgiveness as an act of compassion, being compassionate, right? Like you said, like your parents they're not above anybody. They're not gods. They're not, you know what I'm saying? Like, they're people. So I can see that I can be compassionate myself and be like, well, at the time she was 20, my dad was 21, whatever. I can see that being young and being naive or being whatever, I can understand. Or they were not aware of it. I can understand that as well. But not anymore. Like, they're in their 60s, or actually one of them is in their 70s. It's like, no, they already know too. It's like the time that I had to confront my mom, that was the worst part. It was just so easy for me to do it. And I'm like, wow, I didn't think I was going to be that brave to just confront her, because I held it so long. And once I did that, it was like a release, it was like a release. Like, I released her pain. I released her hurt, or her hold on me. And that's all I had to do. It was just the release. The easiest, yet it's the hardest thing to do, to confront them. I don't know if you ever had a chance to do it, but I never knew it was going to be so liberating.
Yeah. I had to tell my mother about some things, about what happened. And I hurt her. She was so hurt by it, but I got to let it out, and I got to tell her about it. And I feel like that's what happened to me when my daughter told me. Like, it's hurtful, but you know what? You got to hear it. So I did get to tell her about it. I also wrote a poem called A Fool, and she got to hear it. She didn't like it so much, but she got to hear it and was like, oh, okay. I could actually read that one. That was one of the first poems I ever performed. It was called A Fool. And I was like, I'm not trying to be like you. So, and that's the basis of the poem. And yeah.
Let's actually finish with that one, because we have like less than 10 minutes.
Got it.
And I want to hear it. Thank you for the because sometimes they say don't explain your poetry. And I'm like, well, sometimes it's good to have a backstory to it, you know.
And I don't give it away, you know, but yeah. You see, my daughter's right here next to me, 97.
Yeah, I see.
She pinches my chicken wing. Okay, this one, a fool. I had no voice, but I listened. Who knew I yearned to be nothing like you? My reflection laughs at me as echoed voices unlike my own. You've shown me how to hate, how to use and be used, abused to the point of no return. I've lived and I've learned. You show me how to love so hard I'm blind and mute, enslaved by my own selflessness, loving to the point of self-hate. My sight mutes my hearing. My eyes desert my ears. Your lifestyle is my biggest fear. Spoken louder than often, smack after smack. In fact, I yearn to be nothing like you. But who knew my reflection would look just like you? But I'm not you. Your biggest failure is my inspiration. Your mistakes are my stepping stones. Your past is exactly that, the past. But I've moved past hating you to pitting you. I hate that I love a fool. I've moved past the stool you constantly drool to say old things don't change. But like a mule, I keep packing on down to my destiny. My destiny is not yours, but my own. I'm all out of excuses. Your words are useless, motionless, muted. I'm undisputed, a champion. I can't be in your mess anymore. I feel like an emotional whore. Injected directly with your misery, I quit. I yearn to be nothing like you. I'm not you. I choose not to be a fool.
That's deep.
That's it. Thank you.
That is deep. I know, right?
I had to take my deep breath because yeah, that.
But it feels good. Like I'm glad that you said that to her when she was still here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good well, it's a good poem, but
Thank you.
It's real.
It is. It is definitely real. I had to step back and say, nope, it stops. But you know, in deciding not to be like her, I still caused trauma to my kids. So I say to anyone who's listening, even though you're protecting them from the trauma you've been through, you still need to pay attention to the trauma you may give to your child. So I feel like each child is different and they're individual, and you have to treat them with TLC in their own way and their own love language and in their own individualness, because each kid is different. There's no kid alike, there's no person alike. And that's the biggest key to that. And I love that my kids can talk to me. They have the freedom to tell me who they are. My children have told me who they are, and I love them just the same. My daughter's 14, and she said, "Mommy, I'm a girl, but I prefer they." And I was okay with it, you know? And I am okay with it because that's my baby. I say, you gotta give me some time because I'm gonna say she once in a while, you know. She's like, no, it's okay. It's okay. So she started explaining to me all the different dialects and all the different pronouns. And I was just like, okay, wait, one at a time. Hold on. I'm from the 80s. Give me a minute.
That's another poem right there.
So I love that my kids can come and talk to me about these things that are going on in their head. And we have to allow them to be themselves and be able to express themselves. Because if it's to the point where if I'm doing something to hurt their feelings, whether I'm a parent or not, my child should be able to tell me, "Ma, that hurt me." And I didn't have that.
Right.
So yeah.
We can spend another hour
Yes, we
poetry and talking to you. It was amazing. I will like to have you come back. Hopefully Rob can make it next time. But I don't know how I don't know how much longer I have. So I want to say thank you for stopping by, for sharing your poetry. Show us your book again, because when I order it on Amazon, or Broken Silence.
I don't know how to flip it around, but
No, that's cool.
okay.
I read it. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
There you go, guys.
Me on the cover.
Oh, that's you?
Yeah, that's me.
Oh, okay. All
Yep,
right,
that's
cool.
me. Me all dressed up with some makeup on.
All right, Dee. So tune in. I don't know how long I'm gonna have until I'm gonna have to go away from podcast for a minute. But I always would like to do this because it's like it's my thing. But I do want to thank you. And anything else you want to tell the audience? I don't know how long we have, but
self-love. Be patient, be kind to yourself. Be patient and kind. I have to remind myself every single day. You even reminded me, say, wait, be kind. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. Breathe. Another thing, make sure you take time to breathe and self-care. And I'm happy that you're taking a break, because that shows me that you're going to take that break. And, that's self-care. You have to take that break.
I got to get off TikTok. Because TikTok can be it's my addiction.
Mine too. I think I'm going to need a break too soon, because I do. I get engulfed.
I gotta write a poem to TikTok. Sorry, TikTok, I'm leaving you.
I know, right?
My addiction.
Yes.
All right. Okay, so I'll talk to you soon. If anything you want to share with the audience, just let me know so I can put it below. Okay. So and then your upcoming events and stuff. So I'm gonna put it all under comments.
Appreciate you. This was nice.
Yeah, it was nice. Thank you. Bye. Have a good one.
Bye.
We are go for liftoff in T-minus 30. Hit the record button.
That's swell.
It's a low blog talk radio.